Hi, everyone. This is Jimmy, and we're finishing chapter one of Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. We're on the last two pages of that chapter, and Alice had just shrunk to 10 inches after drinking something that tasted like, we remember, cherry tart, custard, pineapple, roast turkey, toffee, and hot buttered toast. Yum, yum. A couple of things I forgot to talk about last time were changing your coordinates. I want to type out coordinates for you in 1 second and talk about that. If you remember, on the table, there was a key this time. You know, when Alice was, shrinking and expanding, she often went back and found things on that table that she didn't see before. This is an interesting concept when you change your coordinates. If you change your position in the universe, you often see things you don't see before. This is going to be a very, very big thing in this whole book that we're studying. The other thing I wanted to call your attention was how to. Alice is continually wondering how to do things. So the how to concept, how to is very, very important. So let's finish this analysis with chapter one. Maybe we'll then do a little review test. We'll see in a separate video, audio recording. So she's deciding what to do. The page before says, finding nothing more happened once she hit 10 inches. She decided to go into the garden at once, but when she got to the door, she found she had forgotten the little golden key. See, it's very important to remember things when you do it, because now she's 10 inches tall and she forgot it. And when she went back to the table, of course, she's too small to reach it. This is very important because it's very frustrating. She's trying to get into that garden. She was trapped for a while, and now she forgot the key. And she started, while trying, the poor little thing sat down and cried. This is very important to think about when we're going to talk about the next chapter. So she sat down and cried. This is a horrible thing. She can't get to the key. She can't get to the garden. So who's saying the poor little thing sat down and cried? Well, it's the third person narrator, of course. Let's not forget that. Come, she says, there's no use crying like that. I advise you. Listen, let's look at this for a moment. I advise you to leave off this minute. Who's she talking? She's saying that. She says to herself sharply, I advise you to leave off this minute. Do you ever talk to yourself? Do you ever tell yourself and scold yourself or praise yourself? So remember, Alice is all alone. She was chasing the rabbit. The rabbit's not there, so she's talking to herself. And then the narrator said she generally gave herself very good advice. Then there's those parentheses again, though very seldom followed it. This is important. You should make a note of this, though she very seldom followed it. In other words, she knows what to do. She tells herself what to do, but then she doesn't do it. That's an interesting concept in human behavior, isn't it? Sometimes she scolded herself so severely to bring tears to her eyes. That's what's going on here now. She's scolding herself. She can't believe that she left the key on the table. The curious thing was very fond of pretending to be two people. I underlined that. You see that underline there? That was in my original reading. The curious child was very fond of pretending to be two people. Pretending is what, let me write that down. That's an important word, pretending. Remember we talked about imagination? Pretending. Let's pretend. Let's pretend to do this. Let's pretend to do that. Sometimes when we're younger, we do a lot of pretending, and then as we grow up, somehow society takes away our ability to pretend. But you should always keep a little pretending in your portfolio, in your deck of cards, in what you should do. Now, she's pretending to be two people. That's an interesting concept because some people look at that and call that schizophrenia. We won't talk about that. But the narrator is telling us this about Alice, and it's the narrator, so we have to believe him. But notice that she also says, it's no use now, thought Poor Alice. Poor Alice. Poor Alice. Don't forget, we don't want this little note here. We want to highlight this and say, poor Alice. The narrator is using that adjective to describe Alice because it's not to say that Alice is poor. She doesn't have any money. We're not talking about money, but she's poor because she just can't. To pretend to be two people now is silly. It's not useful. There's hardly enough of me left to make one respectable person. A very interesting concept. Notice in the next paragraph, there's a little word on the side marked good. That was my original reading on this, and I want you to pay attention to this paragraph because it's very important to understanding Ellis's predicament and sometimes the predicament we all find ourselves in. So she saw her eye fell on a little glass box that was lying under the table. Now remember, she didn't see this before, so remember, it's by changing your coordinates. And she opened up the box, and there was a small cake. And so we've had drink me, which shrunk, right? And now we have eat me. We're beautifully marked in currants. Currants. You want to know what that is, right? Those are fruits. So the words eat me are spelled out in little fruits on top of this cake. Well, said Alice, I'll eat it. And if it makes me grow larger, I can reach the key. And if it makes me grow smaller, I can creep under the door. So either way, I'm into the garden. I don't care which happens. See, I don't care which happens. Right here. Very important. Remember before in the earlier chapter, we were talking about the sun going around the earth. Sun goes around. Oops, that's not it. Let's get through this. I'll apologize. Sun goes around. Sorry. Fix that up. Sun goes around the earth, or earth goes around the sun. Okay. So either way, for her, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. She's going to eat it, and she wants to get into that garden. That's suggestive that it's going to be a win-win. If she eats that cake, either way, in her mind, if it makes her grow, she can get that key. If it makes her shrink, but she doesn't think it through. Thinking things through is very important. Think things through. Now, if she takes it and it makes her grow big, what's going to make her shrink? That's the question. But anyway, she ate a little bit, and she said anxiously, which way, which way? And then she holds her hand on top of her head to feel if she was growing. And she was surprised to find she was the same size. Nothing's happening. To be sure, this is what generally happens when you eat a cake. Right? This is important. Alice had so much way into expecting nothing but out of the ordinary things. See, this is important. Alice had gotten so much into the way of expecting, right? Nothing but good out of the way things to happen that it seemed quite dull and stupid for life to go on in a common way. So she's been getting used to weird things happening. You see, there's another saying that I want you to understand, and I'm going to type this out here. Man gets used to everything. I didn't say this. Somebody else said that. Or you can say it, we get used to everything. If you start doing things the same way, you're going to get used to things being the same way. And that's what's happening to Alice. So far in chapter 1, she's had weird stuff happening to her. Wouldn't you agree with me? You know, getting to be big, getting to be small, seeing a rabbit talk, lots of stuff going on. But now she ate that cake and nothing happened. This is very, very important. So she's, it seems quite dull and stupid. in the common way. So she set to work and very soon finished eating the cake. And that's the end of chapter 1. A couple of things. One of the things is that when she's talking about things being the same thing all the time, that's called the status quo. That's Latin. You could look it up in Google. It means things are just going on the same old way, right? The same old way. She's begun her adventures, however, and that's the title of the book, Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. She certainly had a lot of adventures in chapter 1. And finally, I want to call your attention to the word allusion. Allusions are used by writers to give a rich depth of meaning to stories. And there's a couple of allusions that will happen later on, and there's a couple of allusions that happened earlier before. If you know your Bible study, and you should know the Bible, and there's the New Testament where Jesus was saying, take this and eat of it, for this is my body, and take this and drink of it, for this is my blood. So eating and drinking are not only important to everyday life, but important to biblical allusions. And with that, we're going to conclude our discussion of chapter 1. Jimmy at readingwithjimmy.com. Jimmy at readingwithjimmy.com is my email. Please email me, and hope you enjoyed it, and we'll be talking to you very soon. Thank you very much.